Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be back today here at the Baby Gut Health podcast. It has been a while. Today, we are going to be talking about how you can build microbiome diversity in your family. Today, it's a very, very practical episode. You might want to grab a pen and paper. You might also want to jump onto my website where you can download the guide that goes with this episode today. It's basically about how you can apply very easy um, habits and cooking methods that will help build microbiome diversity in your family. Today's not specific to babies, today is for everyone. And just to really quickly recap, the microbiome refers to the microorganisms that live in your body. And we really want to nourish those microbes because those microbes help to keep us happy now and really in the long term health. So, to begin, the microbes in our gut, and specifically, they like to eat the fibers in plant-based foods. So that includes fruits, veggies, grains, nuts, seeds, but also spices and herbs. And so when we eat these foods, it sits in our gut and our microbes go, this is nice fiber. I'm going to ferment and consume these polyphenols and other chemicals, and I'm going to make become stronger and stronger. The microbiome loves food diversity. So a huge study came out a few years ago showing that people who, and I'll link the study in the show notes, but people who ate between 30 plus plant-based foods a week. So we're talking about quite a big whole food varied diet. They had a much greater diversity in beneficial microbes in their gut. So that means that we really want to aim for anything between 30 to 40 different plant-based foods a week. That doesn't mean we want to stop eating our beautiful proteins and meats and things like that. It just means that we want to add these things in as well. So we want the microbes, like I mentioned, to feed microbiome diversity. So to encourage a more diverse microbiome, because the more diversity we have, the more benefits we get, basically. But if to feed microbiome diversity, we want to be eating a very diverse diet. And to achieve this, now this is when you want to grab your pen and paper, or you can later jump onto my website and download the guide. But spices. So the weight of my spice basket in my cupboard is pretty ridiculous. But you want to have a good variety of spices in your cupboard. So you keep, I say, recommend keeping them all in a basket so that when you're cooking, you just pull out the basket and you have them right in front of you and you can think, okay, what would taste nice in this meal? What kind of spice combinations would taste really good in this meal? So that's my very first tip. And then we want to aim to add 2 to 4 to 5, maybe even 10 different varieties of spices, depending on the type of meal that you're cooking. And these spices may include garlic, leek, onion, cumin, paprika, coriander, clove, ginger, cardamom, cinnamon, turmeric, and the list goes on and on. But these are some of the biggest ones and the ones that have a little bit of research to show the effects that they have on the gut microbiome. Then we have herbs, and very much like spices, I like to encourage you to use a wide variety of herbs in most of your meals. I encourage a good handful of fresh herbs if you have access to it, or if you are able to keep maybe 5 to 7 pot plants of your favorite herbs. One, you'll be saving money, and two, you'll be getting the absolute maximum amount of benefit by picking them fresh and adding them straight into your meals. And some of my favorite meal herbs that have really gentle microbiome supporting elements include rosemary, sage, thyme. You all know that I love thyme, basil, parsley, and also these herbs provide vitamins. They also provide very gentle detoxification in our liver. So it can be such a beautiful way, not to mention flavor, hey. Like a meal without spices and herbs is so bland. And let me tell you now, babies and toddlers, the earlier you introduce spices and herbs, the easier it's going to be for them to get used to those flavors. I also encourage you to swap out maybe your normal tea or a coffee cup for a cup of herbal tea. One of my favorite herbal teas for gut support is ginger, and getting your children used to that gingery, spicy, hot flavor can be so great because the ginger stimulates digestive enzymes, and kind of like we like to imagine if our stomach is like an oven, it stimulates that fire in the oven. So yeah, highly recommend those ones. And again, look, these are all tips and tricks for you to slowly start implementing. You're not going to be implementing these all at once. You're going to be choosing, okay, that one there feels really manageable. I'm going to do that one. Now, this is long, okay? And I just wanted to talk you through it because if you are like to learn by listening, this is something great, but don't forget that you can find this information on my website if it's feeling a little bit overwhelming. So, fruits and vegetables, we really want to be eating at least 1 to 3 different portions of fruit a day, depending on the age of your child or yourself. And with veggies, we want to be eating anything between 2 to 6 serves of vegetables a day. So we have to get quite creative, right? To get in, fruits can be quite easy to get into kids, but veggies can get tricky. Now, again, this isn't about, oh my gosh, my child isn't eating this amount of veggies. It's more like, okay, today I'm going to try this and I'm going to add this in and slowly, slowly make change. And look, there'll always be waves and moments in life where we can't achieve those things, and that's totally okay. So one of my recommendations is to just try a new fruit and a new vegetable a week. And if you are used to eating the same veggies every week, try and rotate your choices. Or if you love cherry tomatoes, try and choose the variety of cherry tomatoes. Or if you love berries, try and choose mixed berries. And speaking of berries, they are such a great option to keep in your freezer alongside other fruits to add to smoothies, to add to yogurt, muffins, pancakes, and recipes. Like the freezer is your best friend in this moment because you can just create a bag of mixed fruit, which you then add to things. You can also add frozen, so you can steam a bunch of veggies and then freeze those vegetables to then be added to recipes and smoothies. So this can include cauliflower, kale, spinach, zucchini, beetroot, and carrot. These are such fantastic veggies that can be added into smoothies. And to be honest, if you start adding these in pretty early, you can't even really tell that they're there. And it can be such a great way to add a little bit more variety into your child's diet without too much stress. Okay, that was a lot. Okay, and then also if you're having a bit of a hard time adding veggies into your child's diet, which by the way, I'm going through that at the moment with my youngest, is to offer like a bowl of veggies with a bit of a dip, a yummy dip, something that that you usually like as the afternoon snack, or when that afternoon just before dinner when they're starving and they really want to eat something before it's dinner time, offer them a bowl of veggies with a dip, and then at least something kind of uh isn't going to create a big spike in blood sugar just before dinner. You can feel comfortable even if they don't eat a whole lot of the dinner, that they've eaten a bit of food before you sit down. Then we have grains. Now there is a big movement, and still is. It was a bit more common years ago that grains are bad. Grains create inflammation. Grains are this, grains are that. Grains have phytoenzymes, which means they pull out minerals from the body. And look, all this is true if you aren't eating a whole food balanced diet. But when we're eating a balanced diet and we're adding grains as part of all the other elements in our diet, they are fantastic. In fact, there is research out there showing that people who avoid grains completely have a much less diverse microbiome than people who include grains into their diet. And some of my favorite ways to not focus too heavily on wheat as the primary grain and not focus too heavily on processed grains is to cook with beans, mixed beans, add mixed beans into stews, and Mexican dishes are also very delicious with lots of variety. If you're ever cooking with beans, choose a mixed beans. Make dips. You can make bean dip, you can make chickpea dips. It takes 3 minutes with a blitzer at home to make your own dip. You can add, if you like eating rice at home, you can actually add 2 or 3 tablespoons of a different grain into your white rice. So if you can add buckwheat, quinoa, or millet, and honestly, can't even tell that those grains are in there. And it's such a great way to add diversity to white rice, which is often a favorite in kids' diets. Then we also can cook with a variety of flours, and using one of my favorite different flour is buckwheat. And I occasionally will use rice, quinoa, and tapioca, but buckwheat is actually one of my favorite flours to cook with that isn't wheat. If you love pasta, considering swapping out for pulse pasta. So pulse pasta is made out of lentils, and it's such a great way to create a bit more diversity in a meal. Like, I mean, I don't really know many kids who don't like pasta, and it can be so great to be like, okay, today we're going to be eating wheat pasta, but then tomorrow we'll eat a pulse pasta, and then the next day we might have some buckwheat noodles or something like that. And that way you're kind of still changing up and still supporting that microbiome diversity. You can see that it's all about finding the flow. So what meals do I already cook, and how can I make those more microbiome friendly without too much stress? It really is about just about finding that flow and adapting things slowly that feel right, that feel easy, and getting there step by step. I mean, in my household now, we do adapt a lot of these recommendations. That's because I've been working on that for several years, and now it just feels like second nature. At the beginning, I was like, oh, I might just add a handful of herbs and this and that. And so, like, these are all things that I have been doing for a very long time now. If you love bread, I highly recommend switching out to rye sourdough. That is, of course, if you can eat gluten, eat wheat. Some people will need to avoid gluten altogether, but if you can eat it, I highly recommend swapping it out for rye sourdough. And porridge, it has been given a bit of a bad rap recently because of the way it can spike blood glucose in the body first thing in the morning. So, but it is such a great food for the microbiome and for our body. So what we just want to do is making sure that we're making it nutrient dense, adding nuts and adding things so that it is supporting a really natural and slow release of energy into the body. And finally, we have nuts and seeds. Nuts and seeds, I just like to begin with to have a big jar of mixed nuts every single nut I can get my hands on, and then having a jar of mixed seeds. And then by having each one of these in my cupboard, I can then play around with how I want to use these. So I can make a flour with both of them together, and I like to call this my prebiotic flour. And then adding that flour to a whole range of recipes. So I can add them to pancakes and muffins and cakes and breads and any kind of meal, or I can add a handful of mixed nuts and seeds into a smoothie really easily. It's not like I have to open a bunch of jars or open a bunch of bags or anything like that. It's all ready to go. I can also, if I'm making a salad or an Asian dish that would be really nice, it's lacking a bit of texture, can roast a variety of nuts and seeds, chop them all up, and then add them on top. And it's delicious. It's not necessarily something the kids love, but it is something that if they see it, eventually they may also adopt that into their own life as they grow up and start to cook their own foods. Now, something that is a little bit more labor intensive, but if you have the time and if you love cooking, you may like to explore this, but it's actually making your own sprouted seed bread or your own seed crackers. And it's not too labor intensive, but it does require a little bit of meal planning and preparing and sourcing kind of like bulk amounts of seeds and nuts as well. And I think I'll be releasing a recipe of something soon. So if you keep an eye on the blog, you'll be able to see your own bread recipe there. Gosh, I think I have bombarded you with a bunch of things. But I guess the reason I wanted to make this podcast was simply because if you hear like, oh, I could do that, even if you take one of these recommendations, even if you just pick one of each category, one in spices, one in herbs, one in fruits, one in grains and nuts and seeds, and you add that to your weekly change at home, that's going to be so huge for your whole family's gut microbiome. So it doesn't have to be overwhelming. You can pick and choose which one you want to use and how you want to go about making these changes. So, thank you for listening to me blabber along in all the tips and practical ways that I increase my family's microbiome. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. And I did speak very fast to get through it all. I hope it wasn't too fast for you. But yeah, I look forward to our next episode. And until then, bye for now.